But over the past 100 years or so, a number of experienced Egyptologists have investigated the mysteries of Abydos. Around 1900, John Garstang was there, with some elegant companions. The Dutch Orientalist Henri Frankfurt was another early visitor. And of course, Sir Flinders Petrie. Petrie was one of the last of the great Victorians, autocratic, eccentric, yet kind and enormously hard-working. Life was certainly rugged. They even lived in rock tombs for a time, and virtually all their supplies had to be imported from England. Petrie was also the first really scientific archaeologist, especially of the tombs of the earliest kings. His daughter explains his methods of work.
When he first went out, of course, he really had to invent ways and means of excavating so that the actual site and level of everything that was found was recorded. Otherwise one couldn't obviously get any history out of it. He did all his own photography out in the desert and developed and so forth. By the end of the season, he would have his photographs ready, he would have his records ready, he would go straight into publication as soon as he got back.
Sir Flinders Petrie and his wife made many visits to Egypt. But even when they had 4 mud-brick walls and a roof over their heads, weren't conditions a bit primitive, even dangerous, especially for Lady Petrie?
She enjoyed it. She liked that sort of thing. She was rushing up and down red ladders all day long. And of course, her skill was that she was a very good draftsman. A lot of the time was spent copying inscriptions. My mother, in fact, was shot at one evening as she came out of the huts. Subsequently, it turned out that it was a mistake. My father generally wore a cap, sort of what you might call a workman's cap, this sort of thing, rather a jaunty angle. And he always walked around with a very tall measuring rod in his hand. He found that the people living around, the Egyptians, were so used to pillaging tombs, in fact this was really more or less their living, that they rather resented people coming in, excavating and finding stuff which they hadn't found previously. And my father would pay them market value for everything they found. It did stop them from stealing stuff and selling it in the local market.
Throughout the 1930s, and again after the war, a remarkable English artist called Amis Calverley spent many seasons at Abydos producing a complete documentary record of Seti's temple for the Egypt Exploration Society and the University of Chicago. Life in the desert rest house and on the site were described in regular letters home to England by her assistant, Myrtle Broom. I wish I could describe to you the beauty of this place, its silence and aloneness. All around us is desert sand, not flat, but in enormous ripples, like the seashore magnified. Our little house is so hidden among the sandhills that one comes upon it quite suddenly. It was during one of the long working sessions at Abydos that Amis Calverley took this historic film, showing the positions of the rest house and the temple, and conveying a marvellously authentic sense of life in an Egyptian village. You ought to see our desert gardens. They are laid out with a perfect irrigation system and are enclosed in mud walls about 14 inches high to keep out the sand. The earth for them has to be carried in baskets about a mile, and it takes a man several hours a day to bring water for them. We are having beans and watermelons and a sort of salad. Some of your mustard and cress is coming up. Since my last letter, we have had a hamper from Dr. Gardner, one from Fortnum and Mason's, containing all sorts of good things. These people do not show their best side to everyone, but once gain their liking and their respect, and there is nothing they will not do for you. One can be friendly with them, but one cannot get to the bottom of their minds. In another letter she writes, "We have now begun work in the temple. I have started near the roof and have to climb up a huge scaffolding which feels very wobbly, but has a good wide platform, enough for a trestle, a chair and a wooden box. Sadiq, our head man, carries my drawing board and materials aloft for me and sharpens all my pencils." The upper scenes are badly discoloured with smoke. The temples were used a lot in early Christian times as dwellings, and their cooking fires did a lot of damage to the walls. We have enough to keep us busy. 4 magnificent volumes came out of those fruitful years at Abydos, providing a classic pictorial record of the greater part of Seti's temple, with its immense profusion of scenes portraying almost every aspect of life in ancient Egypt.